You don't need motivation. You never did. Motivation is emotional. Discipline is mechanical. And emotions are unreliable. This audiobook is not here to inspire you. It's here to reprogram you, to teach you how to execute when you feel tired, empty, bored, frustrated, or nothing at all. Because the truth is simple. The people who win don't feel different, they act different. And by the end of this audiobook, you will no longer wait to feel ready. You will move because it's time to move. Chapter 1. Stop waiting to feel ready. Readiness is a lie. It feels real. It sounds logical, but it is a delay tactic disguised as wisdom. You tell yourself you're not ready yet. Not ready to start, not ready to commit, not ready to go all in. And every time you say that, what you're really saying is this: I'm waiting to feel comfortable. That's the truth. Readiness is not preparation. Readiness is not intelligence. Readiness is comfort seeking. And comfort is the enemy of discipline. You have a choice. You can keep waiting to feel ready, or you can accept the truth that changes everything. You don't start when you feel ready. You start because the task exists. That's the key. Look at your life honestly. Every major improvement you ever made started before you felt ready. You didn't feel ready. You moved anyway. Confidence didn't come first. Clarity didn't come first. Momentum didn't come first. Action came first. And then everything else followed. But somewhere along the way, you were taught a dangerous idea. You were taught to wait until it feels right, to listen to your feelings, to get into the right mindset. That advice sounds kind, it sounds mature, it sounds thoughtful. It's also the reason most people stay exactly where they are. Because feelings are unreliable. Feelings change daily, sometimes hourly. If your actions depend on your feelings, your progress will be inconsistent by design. That's not discipline. That's emotional gambling. High performers understand this early. They don't ask, "Do I feel ready?" They ask, "What needs to be done?" And then they do it. On good days, on bad days, on days they feel strong, on days they feel empty. You have a choice. You can build a life based on emotional permission, or you can build a life based on execution. You don't need their permission, not society's, not your friends, not even your own emotions. Let's get something clear. Readiness does not create action. Action creates readiness. Clarity does not create movement. Movement creates clarity. Confidence does not unlock effort. Effort builds confidence. That's the order. It has always been the order, and it will never change. But comfort seeking flips the order. It tells you to wait until everything feels aligned, until the fear disappears, until the motivation arrives. And that moment almost never comes. So you wait, you stall, you plan, you research, you think, but you don't move. And nothing changes. That's not because you're incapable, it's because you've been negotiating with discomfort instead of commanding yourself. You have a choice. You can keep asking, "Am I ready?" Or you can start saying, "This is required." That shift changes everything. High performers live by requirements, not feelings. They don't wake up and check their emotional state before training. They don't scan their mood before executing their routine. They don't wait for inspiration to do basic work. They run the program. Same time, same structure, same standards. Bad day or good day, the routine stays the same. That's not robotic, that's freedom. Because once the decision is removed, resistance dies. It's not about motivation, it's about discipline. It's not about readiness, it's about responsibility. And responsibility doesn't ask how you feel, it asks what's required. Here's the part most people avoid. Waiting to feel ready is a form of fear, a quiet one, a respectable one, but fear all the same. Fear of failure, fear of discomfort, fear of finding out what you're capable of if you actually commit. So instead of saying, "I'm scared," you say, "I'm not ready." It sounds better, but it costs you the same. You have a choice. You can keep protecting your comfort, or you can start building your capacity. And capacity is built under load, under repetition, under pressure, never before. Let me be very clear. There will be days this year when you feel flat, not sad, not excited, just empty. Those days matter more than the motivated ones. Because anyone can act when they feel inspired, but discipline is revealed when nothing is pushing you forward. That's the key. You don't rise to the level of how you feel, you fall to the level of your standards. So here is the instruction, simple, non-negotiable. When a task exists, you start. Not later, not after you feel ready, not after you feel confident. You start because it exists. You train because it's on the schedule. You work because it's the hour you decided. You execute because that's who you are now. No emotional debate, no inner negotiation. You don't need their permission, and you don't need motivation's permission either. This is how discipline begins, not with intensity, with obedience to structure. The more you act without readiness, the faster readiness appears. That's the paradox. Action creates confidence. Action creates momentum. Action creates identity. Waiting creates doubt. You have a choice. Every morning, every decision, ask yourself one question only. What is required right now? Then do that. Not perfectly, not passionately, but consistently. You don't start when you feel ready. You start because the task exists. Repeat that, live that, operate from that. Because once you stop waiting to feel ready, you unlock something dangerous. Reliability. And reliability beats talent. Reliability beats intelligence. Reliability beats motivation. You mastered the lie of readiness. Now you're ready for the next truth, the one most people never accept.
Chapter 2. Motivation is a trap. Discipline is a system. Motivation feels powerful. It feels like fuel. It feels like movement, and that's why it's dangerous. Motivation is emotional. It spikes. It crashes. It disappears without warning. And if your progress depends on it, your progress will always be unstable. You have a choice. You can build your life on emotional highs, or you can build it on structure. That's the key. Motivation is not the engine, it's the spark, and sparks burn out. Discipline is the engine. It runs whether you feel like it or not. Most people get this backward. They wait for motivation to show up before they act. They tell themselves, when I feel motivated, I'll start. And what they don't realize is that they've just made action optional. And here's the rule that never fails. If it's optional, it won't survive pressure. Remember that. Repeat it. If it's optional, it won't survive stress. If it's optional, it won't survive boredom. If it's optional, it won't survive life. Motivation turns everything into an option. Discipline turns everything into a requirement. That difference decides who finishes and who fades out. You don't need their permission. Not your moods, not your energy levels, not your emotional states. High performers don't ask themselves how they feel before they execute. They already decided. The decision was made in advance. That's what a system is. A system removes choice. A system removes debate. A system removes hesitation. And hesitation is where discipline goes to die. Look at athletes, the elite ones. They don't wake up and decide whether they feel like training. Training is scheduled. The body shows up whether the mind agrees or not. Same with soldiers. They don't operate on motivation. They operate on protocol. Because under pressure, feelings collapse. Systems hold. That's not accidental. That's intentional. You have a choice. You can continue relying on motivation, hoping it arrives on time, or you can install a system that runs without it. And systems don't care how you feel. That's their power. Motivation says, only push when it feels good. Discipline says, push because this is who you are. It's not about excitement, it's about consistency. It's not about inspiration, it's about structure. That's the key. Here's where most people sabotage themselves. They create goals, big ones, ambitious ones, but they leave the execution optional. I'll train when I have energy. I'll work when I'm motivated. I'll start tomorrow when I feel better. Optional behavior always loses. Because pressure doesn't negotiate. Life doesn't care about your motivation. It will test your systems. And whatever isn't reinforced by structure will collapse. So here's the rule you must adopt. If it's important, it must be scheduled. If it's scheduled, it must be non-negotiable. No debate, no mood check, no emotional review. You don't need their permission. Let me be practical. Pick one area of your life right now where progress has stalled. Health, work, focus, discipline. Ask yourself one question honestly. Is my action optional? If the answer is yes, that's the problem. Optional action means you decide every day, and every decision costs energy. That's decision fatigue, and decision fatigue destroys discipline. High performers eliminate daily decisions. They don't wake up asking, should I train today? They ask, what's on the schedule? That's the system. You have a choice. You can keep burning energy deciding, or you can build rules that decide for you. Rules are not restrictive. Rules are efficient. Rules free your mind to execute. Here's what you do. You reduce your plan to the smallest set of non-negotiables, not 10 habits, not 20 goals, 2 or 3 standards, maximum, and you lock them in. Same time, same place, same process. When the time comes, you move. No evaluation, no emotion. Because if it's optional, it won't survive pressure. Say it again. If it's optional, it won't survive pressure. That's the key. Motivation is unreliable because it depends on how life treats you. Discipline is reliable because it doesn't care. Motivation asks, how do I feel today? Discipline asks, what's required? It's not about willpower, it's about design. It's not about pushing harder, it's about removing friction. You design your environment so the right action is the default. Shoes by the door, workstation ready the night before, phone away during execution time. These aren't tricks, they're systems, and systems win when emotions fail. You have a choice. You can continue chasing motivation, riding waves that crash, or you can build a structure that carries you forward no matter what. And once you feel the stability of that structure, something shifts. You stop negotiating, you stop delaying, you stop breaking promises to yourself. You become reliable. That's when discipline becomes identity. Not because you feel strong, but because your system is strong. You don't need their permission, and you don't need motivation's approval. You just follow the system, every day, especially on the days you don't feel like it, because those are the test. You escaped the motivation trap. You learned to build systems that hold under pressure. Now it's time to go deeper, past goals and routines, into who you are becoming.
Chapter 3. Build identity, not goals. Goals feel powerful. They feel concrete. They give you something to aim at. And then they expire. That's the part no one warns you about. You hit the goal, or you miss it. Either way, the goal loses its power. And if your discipline was attached to the goal, it collapses with it. That's the mistake. You have a choice. You can build your life around temporary outcomes, or you can build it around permanent identity. That's the key. Goals are external. Identity is internal. Goals motivate for a moment. Identity governs behavior for a lifetime. Here's the truth most people avoid. You don't rise to goals. You fall to identity. Repeat that. You don't rise to goals. You fall to identity.
When pressure hits, you don't act like the person you want to be. You act like the person you believe you are. And belief always wins. This is why goals fail. I want to get in shape. I want to be disciplined. I want to be successful. Those statements sound good. They feel productive. But they don't change behavior under stress because they describe desire, not identity. Compare that to this. I am someone who trains daily. I am someone who finishes what they start. I am someone who shows up no matter what. Those aren't wishes. Those are standards. And standards don't negotiate. You have a choice. You can chase outcomes or you can enforce standards. Outcomes are unpredictable. Standards are controllable. That's why discipline lives at the identity level. Let's be clear. Identity is not affirmations. It's not saying things in the mirror. It's not pretending. Identity is proven behavior repeated so often it becomes automatic. You don't declare identity. You earn it. And you earn it by doing the work, especially when it's inconvenient. That's the key. Most people tie their effort to the result. I'll work hard until I hit the goal. I'll stay disciplined until I see progress. That's backwards. Disciplined people tie effort to who they are. They don't ask, is this working yet? They ask, is this what someone like me does? That question changes everything. You don't need their permission, not the goals, not the timelines, not the outcomes. You act because it matches your identity. Here's where this becomes practical. Right now, you probably have goals written somewhere, fitness goals, work goals, personal goals. I want you to strip them down. For every goal, ask this question. What would someone who already achieved this do daily? Not occasionally, not when motivated, daily. Then stop thinking about the goal and start enforcing the behavior. Because behavior builds identity, and identity sustains discipline. You have a choice. You can wake up every day chasing motivation to reach a goal, or you can wake up enforcing standards because that's who you are. And standards don't care about progress photos. Standards don't care about recognition. Standards don't care about timelines. Standards care about execution. That's the key. Let's say your goal is to get in shape. Most people say, I want to lose 20 pounds. And when motivation fades, the work stops. Identity-focused discipline says something different. I am someone who trains daily. I am someone who eats with intention. I am someone who doesn't skip because of mood. That identity survives bad weeks. That identity survives slow progress. That identity survives boredom. Because it's not attached to results, it's attached to standards. It's not about motivation, it's about discipline. It's not about outcomes, it's about identity. You don't need their permission. Here's the hard truth. If you keep breaking promises to yourself, your identity is weak, and weak identity creates hesitation. Hesitation creates inconsistency. Inconsistency kills discipline. So the work is not set better goals. The work is become someone who keeps promises. Start small, very small. One standard you never break. Same time, same action, every day. Not impressive, not extreme. Reliable. Because reliability builds self-trust, and self-trust is the foundation of identity. That's the key. When you trust yourself, discipline becomes easier, not effortless, but automatic. You stop arguing with yourself. You stop negotiating. You stop needing motivation. You just do what someone like you does. You have a choice. You can continue living as someone who tries, or you can become someone who does. Trying is goal-based. Doing is identity-based. Trying disappears under pressure. Doing remains. Let me say this clearly. Your identity is being shaped whether you're intentional or not. Every skipped commitment reinforces an identity. Every followed-through action reinforces an identity. You are always becoming someone. The question is, Who? You don't need their permission to decide. Decide who you are, then prove it through action. Daily, quietly, without drama. Because identity compounds. Goals end. Identity accumulates. That's why discipline built on identity doesn't fade after January. It doesn't disappear when motivation drops. It doesn't collapse when progress slows. It endures. You don't rise to goals. You fall to identity. And now you know how to choose yours. You stopped chasing outcomes. You started enforcing standards. But there's another test coming, one that exposes whether your identity is real. What happens when energy disappears?
Chapter 4. Execute on empty. There will be days you feel nothing. No drive, no fire, no urgency, just flat. Those are the days that decide who you become. Not the excited days, not the motivated days, the empty ones. That's the key. Empty days are the days that count. Say it again. Empty days are the days that count. You have a choice. On those days, you can look for a reason to stop, or you can execute anyway. Most people quit quietly on empty days. They don't announce it. They just take a day off, then another, and momentum dies. Not because the goal was too big, but because they confused energy with discipline. Energy is temporary. Discipline is deliberate. It's not about how you feel, it's about what you do. That's the key. Let's be honest. You were never promised constant motivation. You were never promised excitement. You were never promised emotional payoff every day. What you were promised is resistance, boredom, fatigue, repetition. That's the real work. And progress is built there, not during excitement, but during monotony. You don't need their permission, not your moods, not your energy levels, not your emotions. Execution does not require enthusiasm. It requires decision. High performers understand this early. They don't interpret low energy as a signal to stop. They interpret it as the training ground. Because anyone can work when they feel good, that's not discipline. Discipline is showing up when nothing inside you wants to. You have a choice. You can let low energy become an excuse, or you can let it become proof. Proof that you're serious. Proof that your standards are real. That's the key. Think about boredom. Boredom is not the enemy. Boredom is the filter. It filters out everyone who is only here for excitement. Most people quit when the work stops being stimulating, when the novelty fades, when progress slows. That's where separation happens. Progress is created during boredom, not excitement. Say it again. Progress is created during boredom, not excitement. Those boring reps, those quiet hours, those uneventful days, they stack. And while others are waiting to feel inspired again, you're compounding. It's not about intensity, it's about consistency. It's not about passion, it's about discipline. You don't need their permission. Here's what execution on empty actually looks like. It does not mean pushing at 100% every day. That's not realistic. It means showing up at the required minimum every day. On high-energy days, you might do more. On empty days, you do the baseline, but you never do zero. Zero breaks identity. Zero resets momentum. Zero teaches your mind that quitting is an option, and if it's optional, it won't survive pressure. That's the key. So you define a minimum standard, a workout so small you can't justify skipping, a work block so short resistance can't argue, a habit so basic it's embarrassing to miss. And you hit that standard no matter how you feel, empty or energized, the standard holds. You have a choice. You can demand perfect conditions, or you can become someone who performs under imperfect ones. Because life will never give you perfect conditions. Never. And discipline built only for good days is fragile.
You don't need their permission to act on low-energy days. Let me tell you something important. When you execute on empty, you train something deeper than skill. You train self-respect. You prove to yourself that your word matters more than your mood. That's not motivational, that's structural. And once you experience that, quitting becomes harder, not because you feel strong, but because you trust yourself. That's the key. Empty days are the days that count because they build trust, they build identity, they separate who you say you are from who you actually are. You have a choice. You can keep waiting for the right days, or you can build strength on the wrong ones. Now let's address the lie. You need rest. Sometimes that's true. Recovery is real. But most people aren't tired, they're bored, and boredom feels like fatigue. True exhaustion is rare. Avoidance is common. So here's the rule. If your body is injured, rest. If your mind is resisting, execute. Don't confuse discomfort with damage. That confusion destroys progress. It's not about burnout, it's about discipline. That's the key. You don't need to feel good to move forward. You need a standard. And standards don't care how you feel. They care that you show up. Every empty day you execute, you gain an edge. Because while others are pausing, you're advancing. Quietly, consistently, and that compounds. You don't notice it immediately, but weeks later, the gap is obvious. That's how discipline wins. Not loudly, not dramatically, but relentlessly. You have a choice. You can let emptiness stop you, or you can let it sharpen you. Because once you master execution on empty, something changes. You stop fearing low energy. You stop fearing boredom. You stop fearing flat days. They become familiar, manageable, normal, and that's power. You don't need their permission. You execute because it's who you are. Empty days are the days that count, and now you know how to use them. But there's another layer to discipline, one that removes even more resistance. It's not about energy, it's not about effort, it's about removing emotion from the equation entirely. Chapter 5. Remove emotion from decision-making. Emotion feels important, it feels informative, it feels personal, and that's why it ruins consistency. Emotion is unstable. It shifts with sleep, stress, weather, and opinion, and if your decisions depend on it, your discipline will always be fragile. You have a choice. You can let emotions vote on your actions, or you can remove them from the process entirely. That's the key. Rules don't negotiate. Feelings do. Say it again. Rules don't negotiate. Feelings do. Every time you let emotion decide, you open the door to inconsistency. Every time you let rules decide, you close the door on excuses. It's not about suppressing emotion, it's about refusing to obey it. There's a difference. High performers feel everything. They just don't let feelings run the operation. They operate on rules. Rules about when to wake up, rules about when to work, rules about when to train, rules about when to stop. Because rules create consistency, and consistency creates results. That's the key. Most people think flexibility is freedom. It's not. Flexibility invites debate. Debate invites emotion. Emotion invites delay, and delay kills momentum. Fixed schedules outperform flexible plans every time. Why? Because fixed schedules remove decision-making, and decision-making drains energy. You don't need their permission, not your moods, not your emotions, not your mental states. You follow the rule because it's the rule. That's discipline. Let's be practical. If you wake up every day deciding when to work out, you'll eventually skip. If you decide in advance that 6 a.m. is training time, there's nothing to discuss. No emotional analysis, no negotiation. The rule speaks, you move. That's the key. Emotion says, just today. Rules say, not an option. Emotion says, you deserve a break. Rules say, this is the standard. You have a choice. You can continue letting how you feel determine what you do, or you can build rules that decide for you. And once rules decide, discipline becomes automatic. It's not about willpower, it's about structure. It's not about motivation, it's about discipline. Emotion wants comfort. Discipline demands consistency. And consistency wins. You don't need their permission. Here's where people resist this idea. They say, but I want balance. What they really mean is they want flexibility to quit. Balance doesn't come from emotional freedom. Balance comes from stable structure. When your routines are locked in, your mind relaxes. There's no constant internal debate, no daily tug of war. Rules remove friction. That's the key. Now here's your instruction. Identify the top 3 decisions in your day that currently rely on emotion. When to work, when to train, when to stop scrolling, when to sleep. Then turn them into rules. Clear, simple, non-negotiable. Not, I'll try, not, I'll see how I feel. Rules. I work from 8 to 10. I train at 6. I stop screens at 9. And once the rule is set, you obey it without commentary. You don't argue with it, you don't justify breaking it, you follow it. That's discipline. You have a choice. You can keep letting emotions hijack your day. Or you can reclaim control through structure. Because emotion is not wise, emotion is reactive. And reactive living produces inconsistent results. Rules create stability. Stability creates progress. That's the key. This doesn't mean you become rigid or robotic. It means you become reliable. Reliable to yourself, reliable to your goals, reliable to your standards. And reliability is rare, which is why it works. You don't need their permission. Once you remove emotion from decision-making, something powerful happens. You stop draining energy on inner debates. You stop second-guessing yourself. You stop breaking promises. You simply execute. And execution builds momentum. Momentum builds confidence. Confidence reinforces identity. It's a loop, a disciplined loop. But there's another trap waiting, one that pulls discipline outside of you. The need to be seen, the need to be validated. And if you don't address it, it will quietly erode everything you've built.
Chapter 6. Silence the need for validation. The need to be seen is subtle. It doesn't announce itself. It whispers. It tells you to post the plan, to talk about the goal, to explain what you're building. And every time you do, discipline weakens. Because the moment you seek validation, control leaves your hands. You have a choice. You can work for results, or you can work for recognition. That's the key. If you need to be seen, you won't last. Say it again. If you need to be seen, you won't last. Validation feels like fuel. It feels encouraging. It feels supportive. But it's unstable fuel. External approval ties your discipline to reaction, likes, praise, attention. And when those disappear, so does consistency. You don't need their permission, not their applause, not their encouragement, not their approval. The strongest discipline is private. Quiet workers outlast loud starters every time. Why? Because quiet workers are not performing, they are building. Loud starters burn energy announcing progress instead of making it. That's the key. Look around. Most people talk more than they execute. They announce goals before effort. They share plans before proof. And subconsciously, the brain mistakes validation for progress. You get the dopamine hit. You feel accomplished, and the urgency to work fades. That's not discipline. That's distraction. It's not about confidence. It's about discipline. Silence protects momentum. When no one is watching, you're free to work badly, to fail quietly, to adjust without explanation. That freedom is essential. You have a choice.
You can make your journey public and fragile, or private and resilient. Public effort invites commentary. Commentary invites doubt. Doubt invites hesitation. Private effort invites focus. That's the key. This doesn't mean isolation, it means discretion. You stop broadcasting your intentions. You stop seeking permission through approval. You let results speak. Because results don't argue. You don't need their permission. Here's the discipline rule. Don't talk about what you're going to do. Talk only about what you've done, if at all. Better yet, say nothing. Let your routine become invisible. Let your standards become internal. Because discipline that needs witnesses is weak. Discipline that survives in silence is strong. If you need to be seen, you won't last. Repeat it. Now, here's where validation really hurts you. When you rely on external approval, you give others influence over your consistency. Praise makes you comfortable. Criticism makes you defensive. Silence makes you doubt. None of those states are productive. So, you remove them. You work regardless of response. That's discipline. High performers understand this. They don't announce training cycles. They don't explain routines. They don't post every rep. They disappear. They work. They return different. That's the pattern. You have a choice. You can chase encouragement, or you can build endurance. Encouragement fades. Endurance compounds. That's the key. Now here's the uncomfortable truth. Sometimes the people closest to you will not support your discipline. Not because they're bad, but because your consistency reflects their inconsistency. And that tension makes them uncomfortable. So they joke, they question, they minimize. If your discipline depends on approval, you'll fold. If your discipline depends on standards, you'll continue. You don't need their permission. Silencing the need for validation means accepting this. No one owes you belief. No one owes you support. No one owes you recognition. And once you accept that, you're free. Free to work, free to fail, free to persist. That's the key. Here's your instruction. Choose one area of your life where you've been talking too much, where you've been explaining instead of executing. Go silent. No updates, no announcements, no justification. Just daily work. Let silence sharpen your focus. Because silence removes pressure. It removes comparison. It removes performance anxiety. And what's left is discipline. You have a choice. You can continue needing to be seen, or you can become someone who lasts. And lasting is the goal. Because discipline isn't flashy. It's quiet. It's repetitive. It's invisible. Until it isn't. Quiet workers outlast loud starters every time. And once you silence the need for validation, you reclaim full control. Your effort belongs to you. Your standards belong to you. Your progress belongs to you. No audience required. You don't need their permission. But there's another leak that destroys discipline if you don't seal it. The ability to quit. The belief that stopping is always an option. If quitting stays logical, discipline will never be strong. Chapter 7. Make quitting illogical. Most people don't quit loudly. They quit logically. They explain it. They justify it. They rationalize it. And once quitting makes sense, discipline is already dead. You have a choice. You can design your life so quitting feels reasonable, or you can design it so quitting feels stupid. That's the key. You don't stop because stopping isn't an option. Say it again. You don't stop because stopping isn't an option. Discipline strengthens when continuing is easier than quitting,
when quitting costs more than pushing forward, when stopping creates pain instead of relief. Most people do the opposite. They make quitting comfortable, socially acceptable, emotionally justified, and then they're surprised when they fold under pressure. Pressure always looks for the exit. If you leave the door open, it will take it. That's the key. Let's get something straight. Quitting is not a moral failure. It's a design failure. If stopping is easy, you will stop. If stopping is logical, you will rationalize it. If stopping protects comfort, you will choose it. So discipline isn't about willpower, it's about architecture. You don't rely on strength, you remove escape routes. You have a choice. You can keep telling yourself you'll push through, or you can build systems where quitting doesn't make sense. And systems always beat intention. You don't need their permission. Here's the truth most people misunderstand. Public commitment feels strong. Posting goals, announcing plans, telling everyone what you're going to do. But public commitment is fragile because it ties discipline to image. When progress slows, embarrassment kicks in. When failure appears, ego wants to escape. And the easiest way out is silence, then disappearance. That's why public commitment fails. Private standards win, because private standards don't care who's watching. They don't care about applause. They don't care about reputation. They care about one thing: whether you kept your word. That's the key. Quiet discipline is harder to quit, because when no one knows, there's no audience to excuse yourself to. You either did the work or you didn't, and your conscience keeps the score. You have a choice. You can make promises to others, or you can make promises to yourself. Promises to others create pressure. Promises to yourself create integrity. Integrity outlasts pressure. You don't need their permission. Now let's talk about pain. Quitting becomes logical when continuing hurts more than stopping. So you reverse that. You make quitting hurt. Not emotionally, structurally. You attach consequences to stopping. Miss a workout? You still show up and stretch for 10 minutes. No 0 days. Skip a work block? You owe double tomorrow. Break the standard? You write it down. You track it. You face it. Because untracked failure is easy to repeat. That's the key. You don't punish yourself. You confront yourself. And confrontation builds discipline. Most people avoid discomfort by quitting. Disciplined people accept discomfort to avoid quitting. It's not about toughness, it's about standards. You have a choice. You can allow quitting to feel like relief, or you can make quitting feel like regression. And humans naturally avoid regression, so you use that. You don't need their permission. Let's be very clear. This does not mean blind persistence. This does not mean ignoring injury or damage. This means removing casual quitting, the kind that happens because it's inconvenient, because it's boring, because it's uncomfortable. Those quits destroy momentum, and momentum is fragile, so you protect it. Here's a practical rule. Never decide to quit on a bad day. Ever. Bad days distort judgment. They exaggerate difficulty. They shrink perspective. Any decision made on a bad day will favor comfort. So you delay the decision. You still execute the minimum. You still show up. And more often than not, the urge to quit passes. That's the key. Quitting thrives on immediacy. Discipline thrives on delay. You delay quitting long enough for logic to return. And when logic returns, discipline usually stays. You have a choice. You can obey the moment, or you can outlast it. Outlasting moments builds discipline. Now, here's the deeper layer. If quitting feels logical, it's because your why is weak. Not emotional, structural. Your reason must be tied to identity, not outcome. Outcomes fluctuate. Identity doesn't. I want results won't hold you. I am someone who finishes will. You don't stop because stopping isn't an option. Why? Because stopping violates who you are. That's the key. You don't need motivation to continue. You need incompatibility with quitting. Quitting should feel out of character. If stopping feels like something you do, discipline will never stick. So you change the story. You stop identifying as someone who quits when it's hard. You become someone who finishes what they start. Slowly, imperfectly, but fully. That identity makes quitting illogical. You have a choice. You can keep negotiating with yourself, or you can remove negotiation entirely. No debate, no loopholes, no emotional appeals. The rule stands. You execute. And over time, something shifts. Quitting no longer feels like relief. It feels like failure to self. And continuing feels normal. That's when discipline locks in. You don't need their permission. Make quitting illogical. Design your life so stopping costs more than staying. So continuing is the default. So discipline survives pressure. Because pressure will come. And when it does, only what's built into the system will remain. You closed the exits. You removed the escape routes. Now discipline has nowhere to go but forward. But even with quitting removed, there's one more advantage you need. Preparation. Winning before the day begins.
Chapter 8. Win the day before it starts. Most people lose the day before it even begins. They wake up unprepared. They react instead of execute. They spend the morning negotiating with themselves. And by the time they realize it, discipline is already gone. You have a choice. You can fight your day in real time, or you can win it in advance. That's the key. Prepared minds don't argue with themselves. Say it again. Prepared minds don't argue with themselves. Discipline does not begin in the moment of action. It begins the night before, because when the moment arrives, your mind is tired, your emotions are active, your willpower is limited. Preparation removes the argument before it starts. Unprepared minds debate, prepared minds execute. That's the difference. You don't need their permission. Most people believe discipline is about strength in the moment. It's not. It's about removing decisions before the moment arrives. Every decision drains energy. Every choice opens the door to emotion, so you reduce choices. That's the key. Environment design beats willpower every time. Willpower is fragile. Environment is constant. If the wrong option is easy, you will take it. If the right option is easy, you will take that. So discipline isn't about trying harder, it's about designing smarter. You have a choice. You can keep blaming yourself for lack of discipline, or you can admit the truth. Your environment is undisciplined, and environment always wins. Look at your life. If your phone is next to your bed, you will scroll. If junk food is in your kitchen, you will eat it. If your workspace is cluttered, you will avoid it. Not because you're weak, because you're human. That's the key. High performers don't rely on willpower. They rely on preparation. They set the stage in advance. Clothes laid out, schedule written, workspace ready, distractions removed. So when the time comes, there's nothing to debate. They don't ask, should I? They ask, what's next? Prepared minds don't argue with themselves. You have a choice. You can wake up and react, or you can wake up and execute. And execution always favors the prepared. You don't need their permission. Here's what winning the day before it starts actually looks like. Every night you decide tomorrow in advance. Not the entire day, just the critical actions. One training session, one work block, one habit that matters. You define them clearly. Time, place, duration. No ambiguity. Ambiguity invites excuses. That's the key. Then you prepare your environment to make execution automatic. Shoes by the door, laptop open to the right file, alarm set with purpose, phone placed out of reach. You don't trust yourself in the morning. You prepare for yourself at night. That's discipline. You have a choice. You can keep expecting your future self to be more motivated, or you can accept that preparation is the real advantage. Future you is tired. Future you is distracted. Future you needs structure, so you build it. It's not about motivation, it's about discipline, and discipline is proactive. Now let's talk about mornings. Most people start the day already behind. They check messages, they scroll, they react, and reaction kills focus. You don't need their permission to delay response. You control the first hour. The first hour sets the tone. If you start in chaos, you spend the day recovering. If you start with structure, the day follows. That's the key. So you define a non-negotiable morning anchor. Not complicated, not heroic, simple and repeatable. Same action, same order, same time. Because routine removes friction, and friction is where discipline fails. Prepared minds don't argue with themselves. Repeat it. Now let's address the excuse. I don't have time to prepare. That's not true. You don't have time not to. 10 minutes of preparation saves hours of resistance. Preparation compounds. Every prepared day makes the next one easier. Every unprepared day makes discipline feel harder than it needs to be. You have a choice. You can keep trying to push through chaos, or you can remove chaos entirely. That's the key. Here's a simple rule. Never end the day without preparing the next one, even if everything else falls apart. Lay out the plan, set the environment, decide the standard. That small act builds momentum. It tells your mind, we are serious, and seriousness creates follow-through. You don't need their permission. Winning the day before it starts isn't about perfection, it's about positioning. You position yourself to succeed. You position discipline to win. And once you do this consistently, something changes. Mornings get quieter, resistance gets smaller, execution gets easier. Not because you're stronger, because you're prepared. That's the key. You stop fighting yourself. You stop arguing with your emotions. You stop relying on willpower. You simply follow the plan. Prepared minds don't argue with themselves. And now you're ready for the final test of discipline, the one that breaks most people. Not fatigue, not effort, boredom, because discipline must survive repetition.
Chapter 9. Become comfortable with boredom. Boredom is where discipline goes to die, or where it's built. That's the difference. Most people don't quit because things are hard. They quit because things are dull. No excitement, no novelty, no emotional reward, just repetition. And repetition exposes who you really are. You have a choice. You can keep chasing stimulation, or you can learn to set inside monotony without flinching. That's the key. If you can handle boredom, you can handle anything. Say it again. If you can handle boredom, you can handle anything. Mastery is not exciting. It's quiet. It's repetitive. It's unglamorous. And that reality eliminates most people. They want progress to feel good every day. They want growth to be dramatic. They want discipline to feel rewarding. It doesn't, at least not at first. Long-term success is built through monotony, not intensity. Intensity fades. Monotony remains. That's the key. Look closely at anyone who has mastered anything. Athletes, craftsmen, leaders, creators. Their lives are boring from the outside. Same routines, same schedules, same actions, day after day. They didn't become exceptional by constantly switching things up. They became exceptional by staying with the basics longer than anyone else. You don't need their permission to be boring. The world is addicted to stimulation, noise, drama, constant input. And that addiction makes discipline feel unbearable.
Because discipline requires repetition without reward. At first, boredom is not a problem. Boredom is the training ground. It trains patience. It trains focus. It trains emotional control. That's the key. Most people interpret boredom as a signal to stop, or change, or distract themselves. Disciplined people interpret boredom as confirmation they're on the right path. Because if it feels boring, it means you're no longer entertained by novelty. You're working. You have a choice. You can escape boredom through distraction, or you can let boredom sharpen you. Distraction feels good in the moment, but it weakens your tolerance for repetition, and repetition is where results come from. It's not about passion, it's about discipline. It's not about excitement, it's about consistency. You don't need their permission. Here's what boredom really is. Boredom is the absence of stimulation, not the absence of progress. Progress often happens quietly, slowly, without feedback. And if you can't tolerate that silence, you'll never stay long enough to win. That's the key. Think about training. The first few weeks feel exciting, new routines, new goals. Then the excitement fades. Same exercises, same weights, same soreness. That's when boredom sets in, and that's when progress actually starts. Because now you're past novelty, now you're in repetition, and repetition builds skill. You have a choice. You can keep hopping from program to program, from idea to idea, from goal to goal. Or you can stay. Stay when it's boring. Stay when it's quiet. Stay when no one's watching. That's discipline. And discipline compounds. If you can handle boredom, you can handle anything. Repeat it. Now let's talk about intensity. Intensity feels productive. It looks impressive. It's easy to post. But intensity is unsustainable. You can't sprint forever. Monotony is sustainable. Small actions, repeated daily, without drama. That's how long-term success is built. Not by heroic effort, but by boring consistency. That's the key. Most people overestimate what they can do in a week and underestimate what they can do in a year. Why? Because they quit when boredom arrives. They mistake boredom for stagnation. It's not stagnation, it's accumulation. You don't see it happening, but it's happening. You don't need their permission to keep going when nothing feels exciting. Here's your instruction. Pick one area of your life where you've been seeking novelty, new routines, new methods, new plans. Stop. Commit to one simple process for the next 30 days. Same time, same action, same structure. No optimization, no upgrades, no changes. Just execution. And when boredom shows up, and it will, you stay. You don't entertain the urge to switch. You don't negotiate. You execute. That's discipline. You have a choice. You can chase excitement and reset progress over and over. Or you can embrace boredom and let progress compound. That's the key. Boredom also teaches emotional control. When there's nothing stimulating, emotions surface. Restlessness, impatience, doubt. And if you can sit with those without acting on them, you gain control. Control over impulses, control over attention, control over yourself. That's power. And power comes from discipline. It's not about talent, it's about discipline. You don't need their permission. The people who win long-term are not more motivated. They are more tolerant of boredom, more tolerant of repetition, more tolerant of slow progress. They don't need constant feedback to continue. They trust the process. And trust is built through repetition. You have a choice. You can require constant stimulation, or you can train yourself to operate without it. One makes you fragile, the other makes you dangerous. If you can handle boredom, you can handle anything. Say it again. This is where discipline becomes quiet. No hype, no emotion, no urgency. Just work. And that's the highest level. Because once boredom no longer scares you, nothing can derail you. You don't chase, you don't rush, you don't react. You execute. Day after day. That's mastery. And now there's one final understanding left. The one that reframes everything you've learned. Discipline is not restriction. It's freedom.
Chapter 10. Discipline becomes freedom. Most people think discipline is restriction, rules, limits, control. They think freedom means doing whatever they want, whenever they want. That belief keeps them trapped, because the truth is the opposite. Discipline doesn't cage you, it releases you. That's the key. Say it again. Discipline doesn't cage you, it releases you. Chaos feels like freedom at first. No structure, no rules, no pressure. But chaos always collects interest, missed workouts, unfinished work, broken promises, constant stress. And eventually, chaos owns you. You have a choice. You can live without structure and pay for it daily. Or you can build discipline and earn freedom over time. That's the key. Structure removes chaos. Chaos creates stress. Hesitation creates anxiety. Decisiveness creates calm. Self-betrayal creates guilt. Self-trust creates peace. Discipline removes hesitation and self-betrayal. That's why it feels like freedom. The most disciplined people live the least stressful lives, not because life is easier for them, but because their minds are quieter. They don't wake up wondering what they should do. They already know. They don't spend the day negotiating with themselves. The rules are set. They don't carry guilt from broken promises. They keep them. That's freedom. You don't need their permission. Look closely at undisciplined living. Every choice becomes a burden. Every option creates friction. Every delay creates pressure. What should I eat? When should I work? Should I train today? I'll do it later. Later becomes never, and the weight of unfinished commitments follows you everywhere. That's not freedom. That's mental debt. Discipline clears that debt. That's the key. When you know what you're doing and when you're doing it, your mind relaxes. No chaos, no guessing, no guilt, just execution. You have a choice. You can keep chasing comfort and pay with stress, or you can choose discipline and earn peace. It's not about control, it's about clarity. It's not about restriction, it's about discipline. Here's the transformation most people don't expect. At first, discipline feels heavy, unnatural, demanding, because you're fighting old habits. But once discipline becomes routine, it flips. The routine carries you. You stop forcing yourself. You stop arguing. You stop resisting. You move automatically. That's freedom. Discipline doesn't ask how you feel. It asks what's required. And when that question is answered in advance, life becomes simpler. That's the key. The most disciplined people don't feel trapped. They feel light, because they don't carry uncertainty. They know when they wake up. They know what they do first. They know what matters. Everything else is optional, and optional things stop controlling them. You don't need their permission. Freedom is not the absence of rules, it's the presence of the right ones. Rules that protect your energy, rules that protect your focus, rules that protect your future. Without rules, the world decides for you. Notifications, temptations, other people's priorities. Discipline is how you reclaim control. You have a choice. You can live reactively, or you can live deliberately. Reactive living feels free until consequences arrive. Deliberate living feels restrictive until results appear. And once results appear, there's no comparison. That's the key. Let's be practical. If your sleep is undisciplined, your energy is stolen. If your schedule is undisciplined, your time is stolen. If your habits are undisciplined, your confidence is stolen. Discipline takes nothing. It gives everything back. Clarity, energy, self-respect. You don't need their permission. This is why disciplined people are calm under pressure. They've already decided how they operate. Pressure doesn't introduce chaos, it reveals structure, and structure holds. That's freedom. It's not about being perfect, it's about being consistent. Consistency creates predictability. Predictability creates stability. And stability creates freedom. You have a choice. You can keep letting life push you around, or you can anchor yourself with discipline. Anchors don't limit ships, they keep them from drifting. That's the key. Discipline doesn't eliminate choice, it eliminates unnecessary choice. And unnecessary choice is where stress lives. When the basics are handled automatically, your mind is free for what matters: creativity, relationships, growth. That's real freedom. You don't need their permission. Let's close the loop. You learned to stop waiting to feel ready. You replaced motivation with systems. You built identity instead of chasing goals. You executed on empty. You removed emotion from decisions. You silenced validation. You made quitting illogical. You won the day before it started. You became comfortable with boredom. All of that leads here. Discipline as freedom. Not someday, now. Freedom from excuses. Freedom from chaos. Freedom from self-doubt. You have a choice. You can continue with your old patterns after this ends, or you can enforce the standards you now understand. Because knowledge doesn't change you. Execution does. It's not about inspiration, it's about discipline. Discipline doesn't cage you, it releases you. And now you see why. You don't need their permission to live this way. You only need to decide. Do the work, keep the standards, protect the structure, and freedom will follow. Not loudly, not instantly, but permanently. This year doesn't need more goals. It needs standards. Stop asking how you feel. Stop negotiating with discomfort. Stop waiting for motivation to arrive like permission. You already know what needs to be done. And now you do it, tired, bored, unsure, and silent. Discipline is not intensity. Discipline is showing up again, without applause, without emotion, without excuses. So here's the challenge. For the next 30 days, remove motivation from the equation. Follow the plan, enforce the standard, execute daily. Because the moment you stop relying on motivation is the moment your life stops stalling and starts moving forward. Do the work. Again tomorrow.